We are live in the Midlands. Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of Where's the Call Sheet. I am so happy that we keep doing this into 2023. I am blown away that people still are listening, so we're doing something right. Today is the episode that everyone has been waiting for. I get messages all the time in my Instagram, on YouTube and stuff. It's like, when are you going to talk about gear? When are you going to talk about gear? When are you going to talk about gear? Well, ladies and gentlemen, today we're here with Wayne Gassmann to talk about gear. How you doing, Wayne?
What's up, Lucas?
Now, Wayne and I are the perfect combo to talk about gear because
Unfortunately,
Wayne is very technical. Well, actually, before that, we both love spending money. Unfortunately, we love spending money. But Wayne is very technical, and I am not. So I go, ooh, that's cool. And, like, I know, like, basics of stuff and what it does. But Wayne goes, well, it's like that because of the square root of pi divided by the cosine. And I'm
not
just
that
like,
complicated.
I'm just like, okay, whatever you say, Wayne. So I'm happy that you're here on the show. We are in our however many episodes now. But you're one of the first people that I ever met within the industry because when I worked at the news station, Wayne was the Steadicam operator at the station at the time. And just for everyone to know and so they hear it from you and don't think I'm lying, what did you call me for the first couple of months that we knew each other?
I kept hearing your name as Bruce. Like, I had my anchor that I worked with all the time. He just called you Bruce, and so I just assumed your name was Bruce. Every time I walk in, because you were originally in the studio, like running cameras for the automated camera system, and I would always say, hey, Bruce, and you never corrected me, and I still am slightly pissed off.
Yeah, that's like the one time in my entire life that I've like been timid. I got my first job out of college and was like doing whatever, and then Justin, the reporter you were talking about, I was wearing a Hulk shirt because I love the Hulk, and he just called me Bruce, and that he didn't care what my name was. Nicest guy in the world, but he just didn't care what my name was. I was just Bruce, but I was so timid to correct anybody because a couple people like called me Bruce, but they pretty quickly realized that my name was not Bruce. But you, because you weren't in the studio, you came and went. You never stopped calling me Bruce.
Yeah, I called you Bruce for like 3 months.
It was a while.
Yeah, it was a long time.
And I remember that we were in the newsroom because it was once I became a photog,
Yeah.
and you like across the room yelled at me. You were like, Bruce, your name's not Bruce, your name's Lucas. And like you did your Wayne walk over to me, and like we had a good laugh about it.
Yeah.
And I don't think I ever wore that shirt ever again at the news station.
I would probably think not. I don't think,
So it was good. I mean, it was all in good fun. It's not.
Yeah.
There's a lot of worse things that I've been called than Bruce. So Bruce is totally fine.
And it's funny, Justin's still doing well too. So yeah, I just talked to him recently.
Oh, really nice.
Yeah.
I haven't talked. I mean, he go to Atlanta.
Yep, he's in Atlanta. He's still there. So yep, he's still doing the news stuff.
Oh, nice.
So,
Well, good for him. Yeah, and he moved away. Was it before you left the station?
yeah, that's actually he's a huge reason why I left the station because I was like, they brought in the other guy and it just never really clicked like him and I did. So I was kind of like, what am I doing? Like, and so that was actually a huge part of why I decided to leave was because he and I were together for 2 years straight.
Yeah. Well, how long were you at the station in general?
I was in Tulsa for 3 years, and then I was in then I moved to Kansas City in 2013, and I was there for 4 years.
Okay.
So,
and what were you doing? I mean, no, news is a very broad thing. There's a lot of jobs in the news station.
So for 2 years, I was general assignment. So I was actually working like the overnight beat from 2 p.m. to 10 p.m., which was more like 11 by the time you got everything done. And then I was desperately trying to get off the overnights thing, and I kept applying for jobs. And the news director at the time, they kept telling me like, "We like you where you're at. We want you to stay there."
Everyone's favorite term.
Oh my God, it's the most annoying thing, and it's plagued my life a lot because I get really good at what I do, and then I get stuck there because everybody wants to keep you there because you're good at it, and you do like. And I was doing like 4 or 5 people's jobs by the end of it. And they had 3 shows that all kicked off in the same year. The List, the Now KC, and there was another one. I think it was something with Kansas City Live. And I applied for all 3 with a handful of other guys, and literally nobody wanted the Now KC, and I got given that one because no one else applied for it. Because it was a new show, and nobody knew what it was, where the other 2 shows were kind of like well-known already and established. Yeah. And I was just desperate to get off overnights. Like I wanted just something that was more normal, which that was a 9 to 5 basically. We basically had bankers hours. It was literally the cream of the crop, like for hours. Like we'd show up at 9, we were out the door by 10, and then we had to be back by like, we're usually back by 1, had lunch, and then by 3, I had to have all the editing done so I could get upstairs, get the Steadicam on, get ready for the show, and then wear the Steadicam for an hour, which was funny. When I went freelance, when they had heard that I was wearing the Steadicam for a solid hour, they wouldn't let me take it off. it made a lot of guys' heads roll. Like they were like, "Are you serious?" Like, "Oh yeah, I like had it on for a full hour." They would, because I mean, you only have like 2 minutes in a commercial break, and you're right back in it, so it's not enough time to take it off and put it back on.
Yeah, well,
and I was running a large one at the start, which had like the large on the shoulder JVC cam. They ended up moving to a smaller one to kind of save my back, because I mean, I was literally icing my back before the show and then after the show.
Wait, because I remember when we became friends, after you realized what my name was.
Yeah.
I would throw like you would tell me stories about the Steadicam from like the past and stuff, and I would like when I had downtime working in the studio, I would like randomly throw it on, and I'm like, what is Wayne complaining about? This is the lightest camera in the world. Like it wasn't comfortable by any means, but it wasn't like the 50-pound camera that you were talking about. I'm like, Wayne's just full of shit. The same thing with, he didn't know my name. Now he's lying to me about this Steadicam. But I saw pictures of what you used to fly on it, and I was like, oh yeah, no, I'm not touching that.
Yes.
There's not a chance. I mean, I'm not a Steadicam guy, but I would never in a million years.
Correct.
If I was a Steadicam guy, touch something like that.
The only thing that got close to the weight of what that original rig was when we did the Sapiens. With the anamorphics and your LF on
so
there.
It was the Cooks, the Mini LF, the Napa. Yeah, once you kidded
that maxed out that arm that I had bought from you a couple of years ago. I was like, oh my god, like literally could not crank it any harder. Like that was the max.
The camera itself was probably 2 feet long.
Yes.
When it was all said and done, and then weight wise,
it was
had every bit of 30,
at least 35,
pounds.
40 pounds on an arm.
Yeah, those Cooks are not light.
No, the anamorphics especially.
No, not. Well, the Prime Cooks aren't. They're heavier than the Signature Primes, but they're still not. They're still light relative. The anamorphics though are monsters, but they look good. So sorry for your back, but like the images turned out dope.
Oh no, it turned out great. It looked great. It looked fantastic.
So when did you? So I left the news station, and then when did you? I mean, you followed me, but how long was it until you came after?
I don't even think it was a year.
No, it definitely wasn't. I want to say it was like 6 months.
Maybe 6 months, because I mean, right around that time, that's when Justin left. They had brought in the other guy. They were kind of going through changes. They were starting to kick around the idea of making the Now, which was kind of a magazine show. So we actually did like breweries and fun stuff in town. Cool stuff.
It was a cool show. It just was a horrible time slot.
The Now was in a weird spot, and then they wanted to go more hard news with it. And I went to the Now to get out of hard news. I got tired of chasing cop lights. The amount of people that I've seen pass away or bodies ground up, like I'm like, yeah, I want to get away from that. And then the Now was wanting to go more towards it. So I'm like, all right, I'm down. I'm gonna go start looking elsewhere.
Yeah.
So that's when I started looking for an exit, which I didn't exit straight into freelance. I had to, of course, get my face slapped another time.
You pit stopped.
I pit stopped, got my butt beat again, which sucked. I worked for a drone company for 3 months.
Yeah.
I literally quit the station, worked for a drone company, 3 months. All the guy wanted was just all my cinema contacts that I had made and the people that I knew in town, which again, I was at the news station, but I was going to like the Scott Jolly meetups and like trying to get myself into the freelance stuff. It's like even like my best friend Sean Joseph now, like I met him on like a meetup, and like so I was like getting into the thing. And a lot of it was because of Dylan Harrelson.
Yeah,
Dylan Harrelson, he was an editor at 41. He kind of pushed me into the freelance side of it.
Was he at Scenic?
He worked at. He did some work for Scenic Road, and Kevin.
That's right. He never was full time. He was just doing.
Correct.
Not part time. He was doing just freelance stuff for him.
Yes, and so he did a lot of the IT stuff for them and like getting their servers set up because they just didn't know where to start. And Dylan's a certified genius when it comes to IT stuff and editing.
Yeah, I mean, you want to talk about knowing gear and technicalities of thing, like that guy would blow you out of the water. With all due respect, like it's just he's his brain's wired different.
Yes, he's incredibly bright. He's even helped my brother down in Tulsa with his server and stuff, like just over the phone. So like I'm like, hey,
plug it and plug it back in.
No, like seriously, it's an IT question. I'm like, here's Dylan's number. Like, just give him a call. So Dylan kind of was pushing me toward the freelance side of it years before I jumped ship. And then right after I quit the station, I ended up working for a drone company in Midtown, which I was just so eager to get out of news. I believed anything. Like, I've got a pretty good bullshit meter with people, and that guy totally blindsided me. Yeah. I totally believed everything he said. He had all these contacts and these people that we were supposed to be, already in contracts with and stuff. I got in there, we had nothing. Yeah. Nothing. And he actually had me go door to door asking companies for doing drone photos of their businesses.
Do you need your roof?
I'm like,
survey?
We're not selling vacuum cleaners, bro. Like, what are you doing? Like this. So, I mean, that was a huge tipping point for me. And then we ended up, he fired me, but it's because I was doing some meetings to try to get him business, and then he took it the wrong way, that I was trying to like just do freelance, and that actually wasn't what my thing was. And he just took it the wrong way, and he ended up, he told me not to take this meeting, the client called him instead of me by accident.
Wow. And
so he's like, well, what the hell are you doing? I'm like, I'm trying to get work because
we're not working. I'm trying to give you money.
Yeah. And I was just starting, I just got my first mortgage, and I had done all the math, and like so just to put it in context, I was making about $32 an hour full benefits at the station, and I left that to go to the drone.
You made $32 an hour at the station?
Yes.
Wow, they really fucked me.
Yeah.
I mean, you were there longer, but like,
I was there
shit.
for 7 years. And then, so I left there and went to the drone company, which I did all the math, and I went from $32 an hour full benefits to $17 an hour no benefits.
Yeah.
And I did all the math, and as long as I was doing 40 hours a week, I could make my mortgage, I could coast, and then I was going to do a little bit of freelance just to kind of accumulate, keep getting gear and whatnot.
Right.
Well, he started giving me like unscheduled days off because we didn't have enough work.
Yeah.
And I've never had a panic attack until like the first time he did. He just told me, don't come in Monday, Tuesday. And I'm just like, that weekend was like the most panic-ridden weekend I've ever had in my life. Like, I mean, I couldn't breathe, I couldn't eat, I couldn't sleep. I was like, what am I gonna do? Like, I was like, I've got animals and a person that's living with me to take care of. Like, I don't know what I'm gonna do with this. And so that was like a huge eye opener for me. That's why I started looking for clients, and I was like trying to broaden out. And
you're like, I can't. You had the mentality that if I bring work to the company,
I'll stay busy.
Also stay busy, and I will get to go in on Monday and Tuesday and make my whatever an hour.
It was completely a non-selfish move. I was looking to benefit him, even though I didn't really believe in him.
Right.
And he and I were already in arguments at that point. And which again, we should at one point, you should probably have Aaron Monson on, because that's how I met Aaron, was through that company. Yes. And Aaron, actually, I didn't realize that he was doing some freelance, he was doing some side work for the company, and I got the job and he didn't. He and I applied for the same job, but I got the job, he didn't. So he was coming back and he was picking my brain because he wanted to know why I got the job and he didn't.
Yeah.
He was and I didn't know this for years until he just told me like a year ago. And I'm like, oh, so
Wayne,
you're just
I can finally trust you now.
I know.
I'm gonna give you this secret.
Yeah, I know. It was funny. So I was like, you're this whole time you're just like, he goes, no, I want to figure out what made you different than me and why you were a better choice.
Does Aaron do drone stuff?
No.
Because I mean, well, Aaron, there's your answer. But I mean, because you have a very large drone background.
I do, and it's because of the news station. Because I think that's like one of the cool things that I got to do when I was in news. When the FAA was looking to make, because I started this when it was a Wild West. There was no rules. You had just kind of the like really loosey goosey like rules about the whole thing. It was mostly recreational.
Yeah,
and so I was doing all my own custom drones and everything, and so I was like way at the top of this, but the FAA started calling around to large corporations being like, we need to make rules for this, and you guys are the ones that are going to be using this. We need to like establish some ground rules, basically.
Right.
And so they reached out to the Jay Nix, the engineering department at 41. Love Jay. He's an awesome dude, but he didn't really want to go and he wasn't interested, but he knew that I was. And like, he had not even finished the sentence being like, hey, the FAA wants everybody to come together and like make I'm like, absolutely, I'll go. And so and of course he had like a big smile on his face. He goes, I really didn't want to go. And he goes, and I know you're really big into this.
Yeah.
So he goes, you seem like a natural fit. So I actually got to go. It was 2 weeks altogether. It was 1 week, and then it was a couple months later they had us go up another week. But we did. We built the Part 107, and so like I was like one of like 60 people because they did 3 weeks worth of it with. They did 3 groups. Mm-hmm. And so I was like one of like 10 or 15 people. And then there was another group that was like 20 or something, but they did it like over 3 weeks and kind of like basically gave us like pilot training. It was like way worse than what everybody's got to go through.
They just put you in a plane and were like, hey, we're going to figure out drones.
Yeah, it wasn't
just fly
quite
this plane and see what happens.
It wasn't quite that bad. It was like, but they even put us on sticks and everything. They did a whole like training with like actually piloting the drones, which is weird because at the end of it, we even all brought up the question because the FAA basically gave it to Virginia Tech and says, help get these people together and make the rules.
Yeah.
And even Virginia Tech, when they made it written and not like an actual stick test, everybody's like, what the hell are you doing? Like, I was
Yeah.
like, you should have some kind of stick test for
You should
this.
know you're not going to fly this into a
Yeah,
building.
correct. And so, which is funny that it's there is no stick training for it. It's just like a written, oh yeah, you can do it.
I mean, to get your car license or your permit, at least it's the same concept.
Correct.
You go in and
It
answer
is.
20 questions, and they all of a sudden trust you behind a
Correct.
car, and you're like, well, this seems completely
No.
logical at 14.
Yeah, totally agree. And so like that, everybody's like, you guys are just going like driver's ed version of
Yeah.
this. And then, so yeah, it was kind of a weird way they did it, but like it is a cool feather in my cap that I was actually one of the guys that helped develop.
Yeah,
the
like
one I
that's
was
awesome.
sending. Yeah.
I mean, if you want to give me the answers, I don't have my license, but if you want to give me the answers,
Oh
like,
yeah. Over the years,
Yeah.
it's actually changed. 2016 is whenever they finally got that all established, and I got my card because I was one of the first people to get the card.
yeah.
And so like, I mean, a lot they've dumbed it down a lot even since then. Like it used to be like 80 questions and they went to 60 and then now it's down to 40 questions.
When you push the left stick up,
Yeah.
what direction does your drone go?
Yeah. And then I even one of Kevin Schwarzenberger's guys at Scenic Road, I kind of walked because he wanted him to be certified. So I
Yeah.
kind of had to, I kind of walked him through like
Yeah.
what he all had to do and what tests to do and like, practice, which now we didn't have that when I was doing it. Like all the practice tests on you got apps now that
Yeah.
literally will give you all, it's going to be there's like 120 questions on the app, but it's going to be 40 of one of those 120 questions. Like it will be on the test.
Yeah.
And so, and they ask a lot of weird questions. It's not like, what if you want the drone to go left, what stick do you push in what direction? Like it's like, at what point is a thunderstorm the strongest? I'm like, how the hell am I supposed to know? I'm not a weather guy.
Where the lightning is coming
yeah,
from.
yeah. It's like weird questions like that. But that's all like things that pilots need to know.
Right.
But that's not. We're never going to be flying in a thunderstorm. That's just not going to happen.
I will. My cousin-in-law. He's my cousin-in-law. He races drones. He does like the FPV racers and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And we were on vacation probably 4 or 5 years ago now at this point. But we were in the Outer Banks and a massive thunderstorm was coming. And like you could see this giant cloud and like all the things looked super cool. And he flew his drone into it, not like into the clouds, but he got as close as he could. And then like he started getting like the, and he was like, "Oh, we're bringing you back." But the video that he got of that, or the picture, I'll show it to you. It's insane. Just that perspective of being that high and getting that close.
FPV drones in general, like that is a whole phenomenon which is just really cool. It's like, unfortunately, I've figured out that I'm getting to the age. I'm 36. I just turned 36 on Christmas Eve, but I can tell that my brain is not as malleable as it used to be because I'm really good at picking stuff up really quickly, but the FPV thing, I've been at it for, probably like if I had to actually document the time of me doing it, I've probably been working on it for a couple of months. Like, and it's really hard to grasp because you have to have like Jedi reflexes to like,
Oh yeah.
in which there's a pilot that I know that he made the reference. He goes, "It's as close as you're going to get to pod racing as in real life." And I'm like, there's a lot of truth to that because they always joke you kind of got to have like a sixth sense to like do the pod racing. There's a lot to that in FPV drone racing. You got to have a knack for it.
Yeah, I mean, when that craze was kicking up, I bought the DJI FPV because I was like, well, if people are going to start one of this, I should figure out how to do it. And I'm not as versed in drones as you are by any means, but like the controls are different. Like it's not the same types of controls. And I flew it for a little bit, but like it never did what I thought it was going to do. And I'm actually selling it right now. So shameless plug if anybody wants to buy a barely used DJI FPV set.
Yep.
But it was just the people that can do it are insanely talented.
Yes.
But the craze, at least in my eyes, it just doesn't. It's got a very niche like.
It does.
I need FPV for this project. I thought it was going to turn into everything. I thought that there was going to be this whole cinema movement where like they were going to be FPV in these cameras and like through car chases, and then all of a sudden the car was going to like, come to a stop, and then you cut to the ground camera of them, and then the scene kicks in. But it just never did that.
No. No. And it is very niche, but there's a lot of the FPV pilots are still making a ton of headway in working because I don't know if you've seen it. They're like making FPV. Well, so a lot of people do the FPV drones too because they can get around a lot of the restrictions that DJI puts on.
Right.
Because DJI wants you fly anywhere. Like from the days when I started where you could just do anything you wanted, now like you better make sure wherever you're flying that you've got clearance there, that you've got paperwork. If there's an airport 5 miles away, you got to make sure that's not happening. If there's a prison nearby, you can't fly anywhere near that. So there's in which, unfortunately, like a lot of projects that we work on, producers and stuff, they don't think about that. I'm like, where's our addresses? They're like, oh, we're still figuring that out. I'm like, well, you better figure it out quick because I'm going to
have a range
because I can tell you where we can and can't fly.
Yeah.
And so I got just recently, I was on a project, and they were looking for spots. So I told them, like, you need to get me those spots that they were thinking of shooting in. I was like, you need to get me those spots as quickly as you can, because I'll tell you real quick if I can or can't fly there.
Yeah.
Airports or prisons, that's pretty much what you got to avoid.
Yeah.
And then not to mention if you're at the end of a runway. If you like, you can fly near an airport, that's fine. But if it's in line with the runway, you usually can't even pass the 5-mile range. You're going to have some limitations because there's planes going to be in that elevation area.
Yeah, and that's one of those common sense things. It's like just,
but that's not common with producers. Don't think about that.
Well, no, and
there's like, we just need this shot, and I was like, okay, well,
they should almost make people that, like, this will never happen by any means, but like, if you are requesting drone for a shoot, you should have some like, there should be some sort of certificate that's like, I understand the very basics of droning.
Correct.
Of, hey, we can't put this drone in the middle of MCI. Like, we're not going to get a drone shot of the runway. Like, we're just not going to do stuff like that. But there's no way that would actually ever happen.
True, but there are ways you can't, which it's, again, if something like that did come up, there's people that are good at it and that at least know the process. I've only done a shoot near the airport once, and it was before all the strict restrictions came down. It was a pain in the butt then, but contacting MCI, getting all the permissions and stuff, it was something for them.
Yeah.
But now everything's so locked down, you got to contact DJI, you got to contact the FAA, all your flight controllers got to be verified, and it's a whole process, and it's like a couple months process, and you don't even know if it's going to be bad weather that day. Like that's the real kicker for the whole thing.
Yeah, we're shooting on Tuesday, but if Tuesday rolls around, there's a storm, like,
well, yeah,
we can't. We're shooting Wednesday, you know, or whatever.
Yes. So they usually plan one day and then a contingency day either later in the week or the next week, just to be safe.
Yeah.
But one guy that's done it recently is Tim McCullough down in Springfield, and he's a very talented FPV pilot. If someone ever is like, hey, do you got an FPV pilot? I'm like, here's Tim. Because he does stuff for like Silver Dollar City and stuff, and his stuff is amazing.
Like roller coasters and stuff?
Yeah. He follows like he does a lot of the golf courses and like the waterfalls and stuff like that. His stuff is just amazing. He does a really good job. He just did a 2022 reel or whatever, and it's all the, he puts his sound in and it just looks great.
Yeah, we'll send that to me because I want to check that out.
Yes.
I love FPV. Like, watching it just absolutely mesmerizes me. Drones in general do, but FPV specifically, like, I could watch that shit for hours.
And for if anybody locally needs an FPV pilot, I just give him Tim, because I'm like, and it's funny because he and I had chatted a bunch on Facebook, and I was actually he lives near Springfield, and I actually got a gig because of you with Cold Case Files, and they needed drone stuff down in Nixon, Missouri, which is right next to Springfield. And I had some time to kill between the last couple days time shots and then going into the nighttime stuff. And I'm like, hey Tim, you want to like get together? And so he and I, like, after a year chit chatting back and forth, we ended up actually meeting. We went went and got coffee. So like that was super fun. And
did you guys fight drones?
Yeah, we did. We dueled drones, like in the coffee shop.
No. I'm surprised that no one's come up with that. Like a drone with a Nerf blaster on it, and then like
they have.
Oh, they do.
Corridor Digital did it.
Write that down right now. We're buying that for Christmas next year. Actually, for your birthday.
Corridor Digital had like Nerf guns on drones, and they were like shooting at each other. It was
so cool.
It was like so hard to hit each other. Like,
it was borderline
ridiculous.
impossible. But like, it's still just one of those.
Yeah. Actually, at one point, the guy just was like taking his drone and kamikazing it into the other drones.
Now that I think about it, I'm gonna sound really stupid, but like, because of the wind force that the fans blow, it would have to be like metal. Top. It would have to be like a metal gun, or else that, like, if it was a foam ball,
I think
that thing's not going anywhere near your drone.
I think they were actually they might have had airsoft guns on it or something. They had something which is
funny.
Oh,
like things.
Yeah,
okay.
yeah. So they're trying to take the other. They're trying to take the other drone out. Is what they're trying to do. So you're trying to hit a prop or something. But no, it's actually kind of funny. But no. So we were getting on. We were on that topic. But no. So FPV again, like you said, very niche.
Yeah.
But there's some FPV pilots. It's like it's kind of crossing over a little bit more into the cinema stuff, because they're still to get around the restrictions of the DJI stuff, and then also give yourself more flat out speed.
Yeah.
They're like they're doing a large FPV drone, and they're mounting a Komodo to it, or an FX. I've seen FX6 rigs, and they're putting a gimbal on top as well. So you've got a guy that's controlling the gimbal and a guy that's flying the drone, and it's on top, and they're like chasing like these cars in the desert and stuff, and the shots look amazing. I was like, I would love to be on like a team of that. Like, I think it'd be great. I'm just not a good FPV. I'd have to have someone do the FPV. I'd have Tim do it.
The gimbal or
and
something
I do
like
the gimbal.
That, yeah.
But no, the shots are amazing, and you get that raw speed without the banking feel of it. So you got the cinematic plus the speed on top.
Well, and I think that like drones in general, I feel like we haven't fully capitalized on what all they can do. Like, I'm a shot that I've always wanted to do, and I just haven't found the right film to do it, and I should honestly just do the shot just to do the shot, is for a regular drone, not an FPV, but like you start out in a big, massive, normal drone shot, like stereotypical crap, but then you come in, and then when they come in, someone grabs the drone and uses it as a gimbal, and then like we do like some sort of scene from there. I feel like when I see a drone in a movie or a commercial, it's just like, okay, we're parallaxing 400 feet in the air, whatever it is. But like,
I'll
drone
send
close to the ground has a lot of capabilities too that I feel like no one takes advantage of.
I've actually heard that there are some drone pilots that won't fly close. Like they won't go anything below 30 feet.
Yeah.
I'm like, what? I was like, you can get some like amazing shots from like a low to a high. Like you can go 5 foot and then up and over, and then it kind of gives you a whole different perspective on what you're looking at. So it is weird when there's some pilots like, I don't fly under 30 feet. I'm like, what are you talking about? Like,
right.
You can do those low shots, and then I don't have to get my gimbal out.
Well, and I'm gonna piss off the true artistes and the true cinematographers that are listening to this, but like, if you have a really long push in, like let's say like a 30-foot move, and Inspire with it is it the X7 they have now, or is it the 9?
The X7.
The X7, I could take time and lay a 30-foot track, or I could just use this drone and do the same thing, and we're done in record time. You know what I mean? Like it's one of those that like it's a tool, and using it, knowing the tool and knowing what it can and can't do, and then taking advantage of that.
Yes.
I feel like people are just like drone air done.
Correct.
But it's like, okay, I could stand on top of a building with a tripod and get this shot, like, or
Correct.
a slider and get this shot. I don't necessarily need to do this for a drone. It's convenient as hell, but there's so much stuff like below the building line that I just don't feel like we use drones for.
Correct.
I mean, even for like jib stuff, like I did this one film.
Drones are great for jib shots.
Well, yeah, like we started in this window down, and then we jibbed up 3 stories, and like it's a bitch and a half to get that jib. Like you need a techno technically, and so it's like, well, guess what? Inspire X7, like we get the shot in 2 takes. Like it just, you have to be creative, and obviously have to know someone that has that gear, because most people are just flying like Mavics and stuff like that.
Correct.
The Inspire was really hot for a while, and then I feel like it died off.
It did. I mean, the X7 is still like a nice camera. The only thing is everybody's really doesn't like is the fact that it's proprietary lenses. Yeah. And DJI only has like 4. So you're like, you got 4 lenses. That's all you got. You can't. And it's, I forget. It's some proprietary DJI mount. So those lenses don't work on anything else. Right. Where the X5, the Olympus, it's a micro four thirds sensor. So you can use almost any micro four thirds lens.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yes.
Oh, I thought it was just the Inspire X whatever lenses that they use for all of them.
Yeah, no. So Olympus, most of the lenses I have for my Inspire 2 is Olympus.
Oh.
So yeah, like that's why people liked them. Yeah. And it was just more versatile. But do I like the way the X7 looks? Absolutely. Yeah. And which I've had a couple of DPs I worked on projects with that said they can match the X7 to an RE like no problem. So I was like, that makes sense. And I mean, I've seen them. But to the other point you were saying, where people don't realize just using the drone below the building, the roof line. There are some people too that they want to use a drone, but it doesn't make sense. They could have made the shot way more simple by not using a drone. Yeah. One example, we were doing a commercial and they wanted us to fly like 2 foot behind this guy that was bicycling through downtown Kansas City, and then have him like peel into frame, be like 2 foot from him, then back up from him, and then like peel up and over. Yeah. And it just like, that's way too close. Yeah. Like, I mean, even with a tight lens, like, and the drones aren't like, they're kind of like in motion, but once, they're not really meant to like kind of hover there. Like they're kind of in motion and then they're going and they're fine, but there's always gonna be a little drift. And like we were trying to do the shot and he was like, why is it just moving? I'm like, that's just drones. They drift. If you want it like crystal clear, perfect laser shot straight, you're going to need to get like a line cam, or you're going to need to get on a Fisher or something.
Well, if they're doing stuff with bikes, Rickshaw made it's like a little motorbike basically that you attach the rickshaw to the front of it and you drive it like a motorcycle. Correct. And then you put the camera on it. Like that would have been a perfect tool. I actually got a quote for that because I can't remember what it's called. It's called like the Panther or something like that, but I got a quote back. I was like, that's cool as shit. I can think of a million things that I could use that for. Yeah. How much are we talking? And it was like $80,000. And I'm like, I'm not going to use it that much.
For a motorbike?
Basically, yeah.
Is it like an electric bike or something with
it was electric because it was silent.
Was it got like speed rail on it or something?
It was a bike. Do you know what a rickshaw is, right?
Yes.
So it was the bike, and then
I want a rickshaw.
On the rickshaws are dope. the front of it just had a mount that you just attached the rickshaw to, and then it just pushed the rickshaw on the wheels. So yeah, it was a glorified motorcycle, or like I don't know what they're called, like that little kid bike that you had, like the little kid, not the kid one, but the smaller one, the mini bike.
Yeah, the TW200.
Yeah, it was basically that, and then you just sat there and you drove.
That's cool.
It was dope. It was super cool, but I'm just for $80,000. I'm not. That's not what I'm about.
Yeah, and I mean, certain production. I'm sure people
I could technically
you can rent
build
them.
that for like $15,000.
Yeah, you can build it for that, but again, that's just, that takes a lot of R&D and
and I'm not doing that. I'm too lazy for that.
They got to make their money on it. But no, I mean, even something as simple as a rickshaw. Like, I think, honest to God, if I had the choice between a Fisher and a rickshaw, I'd do a rickshaw, because I think it's just you got more flexibility with it, and you don't need to have 4 people helping you operate it.
Well, and I'm gonna piss off people again when I say this kind of stuff, but I feel like Fisher dollies are as popular as they are because of like their history.
Yeah.
Like so much in the film industry, especially from a gear perspective, is like this is what they were shooting on 50 years ago.
Correct.
That's what we're shooting on today. But like exactly to your point that like there's so many things that you can do that give you the same move as a Fisher, but like you don't need a Fisher, because Fishers are kind of a pain in the ass. Like they like it takes multiple people. You got to like it's just a thing. You got to set the track, but a rickshaw, as long as your surface is smooth, like, it obviously takes a little bit of pre-production to figure it out, but it's the same concept.
But I mean, like the rickshaw was like, I thought was a cool idea, even for what my kid is. Cause I mean, you can set it up to like run your Steadicam arm on it with some speed rail and stuff. So then you're already removing some of the bump, and then you're just sitting on it. And then the arm is all attached to the rickshaw. Yeah. So any bounce or move, and then you're just kind of controlling where the camera is aiming. Yeah. I'm like, that's pretty genius. And again, anybody that knows me knows that I like flexibility. All my gear's got to do multiple things. I don't like a piece of gear to only do one thing and one thing only. That's why all my stuff is like, oh, you do it for this, or I can use it for that, and I can do this, that, or the other with it. We'll make it work. We'll make it happen. So it's like, even like the Fisher, sometimes it feels like a one trick pony for some things. Yeah,
and like again, it's just all that stuff that like people don't realize, like what the shot actually is. Like I got hit up to do a music video, and the director was insistent that like, we're doing this move, it's a Fisher move, it's a Fisher move, it's a Fisher move. I'm like, okay, so we got a Fisher because that's what he wanted to do. I was sitting there, I was like, we can get this done with a Dana Dolly, but you don't want to use a Dana Dolly, you want to use a Fisher. I was like, okay, you tell me it was gonna be this like 6-foot move. Yeah, very doable on a Dana Dolly, straight push in as the artist is like sitting there talking. Yeah. We get on the set, and it was actually a 3-foot move, and I'm like, I didn't pay for it, so I really don't care at the end of the day. But it was like, what are we doing here, guys? Like, just because you wanted a Fisher so you could take your BTS picture, like, every time I see someone on a Fisher now, I'm like, okay, like, what was the actual move, or did you just, like, have money and you just want to look cool? Same thing with Steadicam. Like, people want to use Steadicam as a Dana Dolly. Yes. And, like, it's like, oh, we need a Steadicam operator or a Ronin operator, and you're just like, okay, well, what's the move that you want to do? And it's like, oh, we want to do this slow push. And I was like, well, are they moving? Are we walking far? It's like, oh, no, it's just a push. And I'm like, let's save the Steadicams guys back. Let's save the money, because you don't need to rent or hire a Steadicam operator. And let's just use a Dana Dolly. Like, what are we doing? Yes. And they want a Steadicam operator on set. They want the BTS picture. And it's just like, guys, like, this is so stupid.
You hear that all the time. Like, I mean, I'm a Steadicam op. Then you got like Lakota Leap, Sagat Jolly. Like, oh yeah, he goes, I'm a glorified Dana Dolly. That's what they joke about that all the time. I'm just like, certified Dana Dolly.
Yeah, me, Lakota, and Brad have talked about this. Even you and I have talked about this extensively. Is that Kansas City doesn't know how to utilize a Steadicam. Yeah. Like, it's at the end of the day, it's down to directors and DPs to go, hey, this is what we're doing. And I don't think people truly understand what a Steadicam is and what it's used for. Yes. And if you want to spend the money and you want to hire one of these guys, because Steadicam is not cheap, go for it. Like, that's your money, do your thing. But like, if I'm in charge of the money, it just doesn't make sense. Like, it really doesn't. And I'm gonna piss off Steadicam operators when I say this. Like, I can run a Ronin for $200 a day. Do you know what Steadicam operators rate is?
I know Brad.
$3,000 to $4,000 a day on a commercial.
Yes.
I'm sorry, but like, please don't kill me, like the people who are watching this that are Steadicam operators. But like,
calm down, guys.
For the stuff that people are wanting to do, for the specific shoots that we're talking about, you don't need it. Like, save the money and put it somewhere else. Correct. Like, it just doesn't make sense.
Oh no, and it's like, and I mean, and again, I bought that Steadicam off you, because you totally burned Nick Woods on ever having
Oh, because I sucked at it?
Because you sucked at
Hey,
it?
he
Dude,
knew
it was
going
so funny.
in
Like,
that
he goes, I forget what film it was, because I want like a
it was the Honky Tonk Chateau.
Yes.
It was was the Halloween IFC competition.
No. But
something.
I was doing like cam opping for him for a shoot.
What you were doing?
And I was like, I can bring my Steadicam out. And he goes, no, Steadicam's terrible. I'm like, bro, Lucas is terrible. Like, don't get the two confused. I'm a Steadicam op. It'll be fun.
We have to. I have to tell this story. It's to have no context. So I bought the Steadicam because it was during. Was it during COVID, Britt?
That was pre-COVID. Just before
COVID.
Because I think I bought it from you before COVID too.
Anyways, I bought a Steadicam because I was like, I like Steadicam. I try to utilize Steadicam in real Steadicam ways as much as I can. And I was like, again, we're kind of like-minded that, like, I don't like throwing money away to somebody else. Like, that's rude of me to say because I have friends that are Steadicam operators, but, like, if I could pocket the Steadicam,
are so hurt.
They should be, because, I've never paid you anything ever.
Never.
But, like, I don't like I buy the lenses and the cameras that I buy because I don't like other people getting money for it, right? So the same thing with Steadicam. I had a bunch of Steadicam stuff that I was going to be hiring out for. So I was like, I'm going to learn this. And I was ignorant, naive. Like, I fully understand that. So I bought the Steadicam. It wasn't anything crazy. It was like a Arrow or something like that.
It's an Arrow 30, so it's
Arrow
like
30, yeah.
$4,500. It wasn't not terrible.
I didn't spend $100,000 on something. No. Like it was, I was learning. And so I had done some stuff in the backyard. I could chase the dogs around, and like I was okay.
Yeah.
Like, would I go to a commercial set for Nike and do it? Fuck no.
No.
But, like, when Nick hit me up and was like, hey, we're doing this short film, it's part of a competition, and, like, the entire crew and cast is, like, people that are learning, I was like, hey, I have a Steadicam. We can do this as a Steadicam shot, but I'm not some seasoned pro and shit like that. And then we got there on set, and I think it was, like, slightly windy, and, like, the okay that I was just turned into absolute and total trash, and I was just like, well, yeah, I suck.
Well, I mean, yeah, and
the shots turned out horrible. Absolutely horrible.
We were down at the West Bottoms, and it's always windy down there. And anytime you're between buildings, that's a factor. That's a factor. And if you're not like setting the drop correctly to where you can compensate for that, like that's always an issue. So, and again, you're just inexperienced. And again, I didn't honestly, when I started doing it for the news station, I knew nothing. I wanted them to send me to Pennsylvania, but after the whole drone thing, me going and doing the FAA, they're like, we're not sending you anywhere.
We've already spent enough money on you.
We've already invested in you. We don't want to do that. So I was like, I had to learn everything on my own. Like that was me and my buddy Nick Hinkenthrone going through a bunch of YouTube videos, me fixing stuff all the time, like, or because the Steadicam vest was really old. So like I was like working on it and getting it, fixing bolts and finding stuff and repairing it. So when I wasn't working, I was doing this stuff, like getting stuff to where it was more comfortable and working for me. And so like, it was funny when I left the station, Nick, and it was the photog that replaced me. They both said, it goes, oh my God, I did not realize how much effort it does to keep the Steadicam going. I was like, yeah, like it takes work. Like, what do you think?
There's a reason that nobody wants to do this.
Correct. Yeah. Like you got to kind of be somewhat of a mechanic. You kind of, you know what you're doing with all the springs and stuff, just keeping everything tight and making sure stuff isn't like wiggling out, and because you don't want the camera to fall off like while you're mid shoot, or something stupid. It's really
awkward,
bad.
but
yeah, it would be very awkward. It's kind of like that viral video where the guy was showing the Steadicam and had an Ari on it, and he was like and then the whole arm busts off and falls. It's like, well, that's really embarrassing.
Well, you never got hired ever again.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I was like, congratulations, your Steadicam career is over. But no, like I bought it from you because you were looking to get it because you were like, I'm terrible at this. Like,
it just hit a point where I thought I was gonna have time to work on it, and I was just like, not like I don't, and I just wanted to recoup the money so I could, put it into something else.
And I, after the news station, was looking for a Steadicam, at least so I could have one. And again, is it as fancy as Lakota's or Brad's? God, no. But for the stuff I need it for, it works great.
Yeah.
I can throw my FX6 up there. I can throw an FX9. I can throw, your Ari's rode on top of it multiple times. And it does a decent job.
With a Coke Anamorphic.
And, I mean, is it a $100,000 rig? No. But it gets the job done if you need it quick and dirty. And that's really why I want it for. Like, when we did my film with Corey Haynes in Texas a couple years ago, which that's still coming out. Jesse Vanderviver sent me the first draft of audio, and it sounds awesome.
Oh,
so
nice.
so it's moving forward. We had a couple of hiccups, but anyway,
Siege, right?
Siege.
Yeah.
So it was so we use the steady, and again, tools always like help tell the story.
Yeah.
So it's like whenever I was doing like the operators doing for the shots, they were always on the Steadicam because the whole thing with military, smooth as fast, fastest, or smooth as fast, fastest smooth. And so they were always, every shot with them is on the Steadicam or on a dolly.
Yeah.
And then every shot with the bad guys is handheld,
Okay.
or like the action scenes are rough because it's like they're not as coordinated. So
Yeah,
I'm telling a story through even my camera motions.
Right.
Just
Well,
how,
that's the job of the DP.
Correct. So I mean, even for quick and dirty stuff like that, that's what I use it for. Like for my own project, someone's like, "Hey, we really need a Steadicam op for this. Can you bring yours out? I don't have money to bring out Brad or whatever." I'm like, "Yeah, that's fine," and I'll just go and I'll go run it.
Well,
And
not
it works
every
great.
shoot needs like you don't need to. You're not running Aries or
Correct.
Reds or like DXL. Like you're not running giant cameras on every shoot. So like there's a place for the $100,000 rig, but there's also a place for the how much is that one if you buy
$4,500.
40. Yeah, there's a place for the $5,000 rig. It's the same thing when you have the Ronin 2 versus like an RS2 or something like that. Like Ronin 2 is obviously better.
Which is funny. I have both.
Well, yeah, because you have a hoarding problem when it comes to gear.
It's true.
Wayne goes, "Oh, something new came out. Credit card." You're not.
No.
Name one item that you passed on in the last year. One item that you did not buy that came out new in 2022.
What else did come out in 2022?
Or just in general. The fact that you're having a hard time thinking about this proves my point.
It's true.
You've bought every light, at least from Aperture.
Well, I mean, I just got the 600C from Travis because,
Yeah.
I mean, once you use it once on saying, I'm like, oh my God, this is stupid. It's just, it has everything. So it's like, screw bicolor, just get the full spectrum. If I want to make a cool, moody scene in the background, I can just whoop. And then not to mention the 600 is powerful enough to be a sun shooter anyways.
Yeah.
The 1200D, it's a great light. In my situations, do I need that much juice?
It's very specific.
It's very specific. You're really trying to combat the sun. So I was like, the 600 is more than enough to throw outside this window, shoot light in, and make it look like it's nighttime, or make it look like the sun's rising or something. Yeah. That's what I need. I don't need anything crazier.
The 1200D is the perfect book light, in my opinion. If you're shooting something that you are combating a giant window. Yes. And you need a strong key that can help you,
just
balance that out a little bit.
Make sure tell your talent to wear sun or sunscreen.
Yeah, I mean it's bright. Like even at 1%, that motherfucker's bright. But like you put that 100, get some ultra bounces through some stuff. Like it looks really fucking good.
Yes.
Aperture has their shit together. So like I've sold all my lights at this point. Like I'm basically just camera minus a couple of little things for like if I'm doing like one man band type stuff. But when I first started buying stuff, I was a snob. Like I was, Aperture sucks, and like this is when like the 300. This was before the 300 had come out. I loved all my Airy lights. Like I was very much like Aperture is a knockoff. Aperture sucks, and then the 300 came out, and I was like, still not a huge fan of it. But then I used it a couple of times, and I was like, okay.
Well, you're a sky panel guy though, like
I had all the sky panels and stuff, and then they came out with the Nova. That's Aperture, right? Yeah. And then they came out with the little pucks.
The Nova was the first Aperture light that I bought. The 300.
Oh really? Oh, nice. Yeah, I mean, and like then I did a shoot where we controlled it by the app, and I'm like, we don't need a DMX board. You tell me that we can do this from that. I was like, okay. Like they kept coming out with stuff that like just kept pushing them up my list. Yes. And if I were to go start like buying lights again, I'm not going to, but if I was going to, I would probably get a full suite of Aperture, and then like a couple other like specialty lights for specialty reasons. They're great. They're fantastic. And there's no reason to have a bicolor light ever again. Like any company that comes out with a light that is not full spectrum, like just take it off the market. Like there's no reason to release it.
No, I think I mean, the 1200D, because again, it's only daylight. You're trying to squeeze every last bit of juice out of it to fight the sun. Yeah. But that's the only reason why you'd really want it. Yeah. And
it's not that expensive. So
Travis and I have gone back and forth on that too, because when I got my first 300X, he was like, "Why don't you just get the 300D?" I'm like, because I like it if I'm in an environment like this. Even I want to be able to switch to tungsten quickly. Yeah. And he goes, "Well, you just got gels." I'm like, "But then that means I got to carry a jelly roll." Like I'm like I just don't want to do that. And again, versatility. It's all about time is money. So I got the 300X and I love that light. It's amazing. And like once the 600, in which I was looking at getting a 600, I think they have a 600 bicolor. I was looking at getting that next as like just as like a fill out kit, but then once the C came out, I'm like, oh my god.
Yeah.
And then Travis was one of the first people to get it in town. I'm like, and then we used it on a set, and I'm like, oh my gosh, like this
Just
is
so
crazy.
people know what's the difference between the C and
The 600C is the full color spectrum RGB. So I mean, you can go through the stupid menu in that thing alone. Every gel mixture, whether you're shooting through tungsten or daylight, it's crazy. Just the amount of so many options that I will never use in my career. Like I'm like, let's see, I want it to be, this hue. All right, cool, good. And like turn the saturation up or down. But like you can, like people like Tony O or any of them, they have all this stuff at their fingertips. Like Troy Paddock would love it. Like it's just that's just their thing for knowing exactly their CTO and their gels and what color light they're shooting through it.
Well, and that's like for me. So I'm just impatient, really. But like so like when I'm on a set and like let's say we just have it's just daylight. Like it's just this is what the color light is. We can gel it. I hate when we sit there and have the conversation with the gaffer and they go this no, this no. This no, like it just annoys me. So like having the full spectrum on an app that we can sit there together and like you can roll the wheel and like nah, oh we're there, like like it just that convenience factor of it to me. Again, it's not the true cinema, it's not the true RT stuff that like people are gonna blast me for.
Yes,
but like having every option possible at your disposal, and you don't have to do math. You don't have to like, oh crap, I forgot that roll at home or anything. Like you have everything in the palm of your hand.
Yes,
to me is worth one exponential amount of money.
There was one situation when it was for just like it was just a one-off thing. And, but we were shooting at the old Alamo Draft House and we were set up the interviews like in like the lobby and it was like, there was a party going on. So it's not like we could shut everything down. Right. So it's just a really quick run and gun thing, but they're doing little stand-in interviews with these people and the overhead lights were very orange, very, very orange. I'm like, well, this looks, I'm like trying to match it. It's not working. I can never quite get the key light to match the like I kind of use one of the lights as kind of like a hair light. Yeah. And so I'm like, and so I like, oh wait. So I looked at the app and I like took a picture of the light. Sure as shit, matched it perfectly. Like the app actually matches the color.
Wait, Aperture has that feature?
Yes. Oh, shit. You take a picture and it matched the color of the light. The whatever magenta green shift was in the light too was all. I'm like, why would you not do this?
I knew the Orbiter had that. I knew it, but that's like on the light. It does that. I did not know that Aperture does that.
Yes. So you take a picture of whatever light source you're trying to shoot, and it'll match it.
I'm telling you right now, man. If Aperture's not the king of lights in the next 5 years, I'd be shocked.
Oh, like, I know. It's like and
it's a pricing too. Like the Orbiter is a $12,000 light.
Yes.
And well, I think when it's like $8,000, but like by the time you actually get everything you need because it's interchangeable, it's like a $12,000 to $15,000 light. How much is that? The Aperture equivalent? Whatever you're talking about.
I paid what, $2,100 for it.
Like, come on.
So yeah, like
you're paying that money because, and I love Arri. Don't get me wrong. I have Arri cameras. Like I love Arri, but just because Arri's name on it doesn't mean that it should be
the greatest
six times more expensive. It just shouldn't.
No.
Like I get the Orbiter has a couple extra features and whatnot. I fully understand that, but like, come on. Like that's just wild.
And I mean, I'm getting to the point. It's like, and again, like So it's funny, like even my history with cameras, because I mean, I've been shooting stuff since I was like 14 years old.
Yeah.
So, and I've used Sony, Canon, I had Canon XHA1 like coming up, shot like XL2s and stuff back in the day. Dude, that was like way back.
XL2s sucked.
Oh yeah, they were
so
terrible.
bad.
Well, that was mini DV tape stuff.
Yeah, that was the first camera that I used. We had those when I took my first high school class. We had like our broadcast journalism. Yep. Those are the cameras that we used.
Actually, funny story with that, because my parents were like, that's my parents never like spoiled us growing up, but they like saw that we were passionate about this stuff, and that's what they invested in. Like one year they combined all of our Christmas and birthday presents and got us an editing machine.
Oh, cool.
And my dad was blue collar, like he worked for an airline, so like there was not a lot of money to go around, but he saw that this is something that we liked doing, because we were doing in-camera editing at the time. We had like a little Sony High 8 like night vision mode handy cam is what we had.
You sure you're only 36?
Yeah, what's that?
Are you sure you're only 36?
Yeah. Yeah. And that was our family video camera. That's what they bought it for. And we'd be out shooting in the yard and like hunting the cat and stuff, like doing like, like a wildlife excursion video, like with the night vision.
Yeah.
And they're like, we do like these stupid, like again, all this is documented. These are all in a box. I want to digitize them really bad because I don't want to lose them.
Yeah,
I actually want to make like a unlisted YouTube and like have them all up there so like the whole family can get to them whenever.
Yeah.
And
You should definitely list those because that's like weirdly like something that I feel like people would like
Yes.
make go viral.
But no, we liked. Remember the old show Gargoyles? Yeah, we
I
like.
love gargoyles.
Yeah, I know, right? So like we would do little like gargoyle skits with the night vision camera, and we were like on our bunk bed and stuff. And so that we had a lot of shenanigans. And my parents they would tell us, they're like, now don't waste the tapes. Like those are expensive because again we didn't have a ton of money, and that was a family camcorder. And then we started watching some of the stuff back, and we were starting to overwrite some of the stuff because we were trying to save tape. And they're like, no, don't do that, because they realized that we were recording our childhood, and they didn't have to do anything. So like they're like, they never even had to learn the camera. We were shooting our entire childhood, and they didn't have to do anything. So they're like, we'll buy you as many tapes as you want.
We get the memories, and we don't have to do work.
Exactly.
Sold. Let's go.
And so the brothers and I we love Star Wars. Who didn't like Star Wars?
Yeah.
So like we were doing like little Star Wars things in the backyard. We would record. We were using like saving up money to like buy fireworks that we'd launch out of guns, like simulate, Boba Fett or something, like shooting at someone, and lightsabers battles and stuff. And we were doing like, to do music in our videos, we actually had Velcroed a couple of speakers to the tripod, and we'd rehearse the scene, and we had a little Walkman CD player that we'd mix CDs and put what our tracks were, and we'd put it on the bottom of the tripod, and then we would rehearse the scene and be like, okay, and go. We hit record and play on the music so we could put music in our videos.
Oh my god!
Because we didn't have an editing system.
You have to reveal these to the world.
Yes,
you have to put those out there because that's so cool.
And no, it's like, it's kind of funny because M. Night Shyamalan had like one of his DVD specials was that too. Was like his old stuff that he was like getting approached by like a monster or something that was like on a robot track or something. I was like, I kind of want to do something similar because the stuff we used to do, I'm like, man, that's crazy. People would love to see this.
Well, and like that's what filmmaking is. Like at the root of everything, it's finding a way to make something happen when you don't have a way to make it happen. Like that's why Star Wars is so popular. Like I'm just gonna have a theme of pissing people off. Like Star Wars, the storyline, like all that, it's trash. Like Star Wars has been done a million times. It's a Western.
Yeah.
But what made Star Wars amazing is that it was the first time that like we had seen a different world. Like they took it to outer space. Like that is why Star Wars is so nostalgic and why it's so crazy is that they had a vision and no one had done it before, so there's no roadmap of how to do it.
Yes.
And they found a way to do it. Same thing with the Steadicam. It was invented on Star Wars because they wanted to do a specific shot. There was no way to do it, and so I can't remember the guy's name, decided to make the Steadicam, and he did it. Same thing with your filmmaking. Like that's why it's cool is that like, okay, we don't have money, we have no resources, we have no way to edit this, but like we found a way to make something that like we think is fucking cool. And like so many people are so, and I'm one of them. Like I have projects that I don't release and stuff like that, and people are like, oh, it's so bad, and it's like no, like you finish something. Like that is a good film no matter what because you finished it. The only films that are bad are films that don't get made. They don't get completed.
Yes.
So the fact that you guys didn't stop because you didn't have music or didn't stop because, well, shit, we don't only have 3 minutes of tape left. Like that's so cool. And if you don't put that on YouTube, I'm going to go down to your parents' house and I'm going to find it and put it on YouTube myself.
There's actually like one scene that we did, and it was, I forget what it was. The good guy killed the bad guy or whatever. And of course, the good guy's walking away, and we do this shot, which it just happened to work out, right? Because it was like the sun was starting to set, and we like go from this shot here, and we were playing like the Lord of the Rings theme from Enya, as like, so we go from this shot that you can see, and then like we go up to the sky as the good guy's walking away, and then of course it's silhouettes.
Right.
It looks really great, and we were like, we'd show these off to Grandma and Grandpa. They loved that stuff. They were like, and Grandma just thought that was like the bee's knees back in the day, and everybody was like, "Are you guys like?" They would look at my parents like, "Are you investing in this stuff?" And they're like, "What do you mean?" They're like, "These guys obviously have something.
Yeah,
they got something here. You probably need to do something with it." And so that's why Mom and Dad, like, it got down to the fact that like they bought us an editor one year. It was not cheap at the time either, because the barrier to entry was not quite. It was down, but it wasn't gone.
Right.
But the parents bought us an editing machine, and just the whole world opened up. Like it just opened up. It's like, oh, we can put in music after. We can do effects after.
We don't have to Velcro this anymore.
Yes,
like,
correct.
Oh my gosh, this is crazy.
And no, that was back then too. Like it was crazy because it was all on like high 8 tapes. You had every bit you recorded, you had to record it back into the computer.
It again
into the computer. So we learned on New Tech Video Toaster is what it was called. Video Toaster 3.
Oh my gosh.
And it was actually very popular back then.
Yeah.
It was just not super well known, and they still make stuff now. They make they had an editor that was called Speed Edit, which a lot of news stations picked it up for a little bit, and then they kind of dropped out, and then they started going into their Speed Edit software, which they used to require a full video, like a video card size card in the computer to do it. Then the Speed Edit was basically all non-linear editing, so it was kind of like one of the first. This was like the same time Final Cut and stuff was becoming popular.
Yeah.
And so Final Cut was out. They're like, we got to make something that doesn't require a big honking card to go on your computer. So they made Speed Edit, which you could run it without a card in there. And then they kind of transitioned into live streaming stuff, and they have something called a TriCaster, which they still sell.
Yeah.
And they work really well. They're just like it's a studio in a box.
Yeah,
I know.
I've worked with TriCasters.
Yes,
they're great.
And that's them. That's pretty much their whole identity now is the TriCaster. They kind of went away with the whole just video editing. They kind of like for people like churches and stuff. There's like we need something that's all in one box. Here you go.
Well, right. I mean, like as other editors came out, like the market became saturated. Like everyone was doing that. So like from a business perspective, okay, how do we pivot? What's something that people are not doing, and what's not sexy? Like a video editor. I mean, editing's not necessarily sexy, but like in the realm of film, like ooh, look at my new fancy sleek video. Like that's kind of sexy.
Yes.
But like, here's a way to live stream your, friend's birthday party. Like that's not sexy.
And
like
technically,
that's not.
I mean, they were the first ones to like make one that was affordable. That was like a big deal for them because otherwise you had to go buy like a Grass Valley. I mean, you're looking at tens of thousands of dollars for a small board,
if not more.
Yes. And so I mean, we use them at the news station. That's what they use the technical direct. But like that new tech, it was all a digital interface. You didn't have to even buy the board. You could just do it on the screen if you wanted to. You didn't have to have the actual physical input. You could buy it if you wanted to, but it wasn't necessary.
Yeah.
All the inputs and stuff were out there. They gave you all the options to stream to YouTube, Facebook, whatever you wanted. It was all built into one little box.
It's
really
crazy.
No, it's crazy. It was really genius at the time, and it's kind of cool that they're still doing it, and that's what they're known for. That's what they just run with.
Yeah. During COVID, I worked with a company that invented this thing they called Crew in a Box.
You told me about that.
Shoots. It was the coolest thing I've ever seen. But like they would ship you the box, and I did a couple shoots like with the Chiefs and like some high profile people that like because of COVID you weren't allowed to have access to them. But I would put this box on top of a cart. I'd set it up, whatever, plug it in, make sure it's powered, all that kind of stuff, and then I would wheel it to a Chiefs representative, somebody, and then they would wire it in. And all they had to do was turn it on, and like there's these lights that like so like it was the box, and like it flipped up, and the lights came up on the top, and then there was a Blackmagic on the inside with a Canon whatever zoom on it. But like they found a way to remotely control the camera, the lights, the teleprompter, like all that stuff. So they literally, I just had to set it up because they didn't want to like talk them through like here's how you plug the lights in and stuff like that. And then they would go like tilt the cart to the left, and like you would just move it slightly, and then Patrick Mahomes would sit down, they'd pull focus remotely, they would like if we want a little bit of shape, they would kill the lights on the right side of the box, and it was just absolutely insane what people could do in like a one like a self-contained little box of like it's just nuts what some people think of because like my brain doesn't work like that. I don't go what's the way that I can make this as easy as possible and fit it all into one thing? I go, okay, I can do this with a couple people, but like that Crew in the Box, you do that with one person. The TriCaster is the same kind of thing. Everything's in one spot. You probably need more than one for a TriCaster, but like, like it's just crazy what innovation does in the tech space. And like where we're at right now, gear wise, is there's so much gear coming out right now. It's almost coming out too fast. Like DJI just announced another RS3 whatever, based off like the silhouette image. They haven't actually announced it yet. It's like they're teasing it for next week. It's just a way that you can shoot vertical video. Like the camera's mounted.
Oh my god!
Instead of mounting it like this, they mount it like this.
Everything for the gram, right?
I mean, really though, like
still makes me throw up my mouth when I see the L brackets for like Aries and stuff like that. I'm like, ugh.
Well, and like the Mini LF is one of the shooting 4.3. It's fantastic for that because you don't have to shoot out bracket. You can shoot two videos at one time.
Well, I will say though, I do like. And I didn't even know about OpenGate until you got yours. And I was like, oh, that's really cool. That's
sick.
dope. That's like,
I mean, the sensor it's optimized for anamorphic. Like that's why it's made because it's cinema camera. They want to use anamorphic, and 4.3 is the best way to do that. But we're like everything's vertical video now. I do so many projects. It airs like 16:9, but it's also airing at 9:16.
Yeah.
Hell, this podcast is the same thing. Like I put it on Instagram, and like I shoot OpenGate so that I can do the long ways or horizontal ways, whatever the technical term is, for YouTube. But then when I want to put it on Instagram or whatever else, like TikTok, whatever, I 4.3 and I have the
Yeah.
same. I have it. And I don't have to lose quality. It's just so crazy. Like the stuff, and that's not even like the tip of the iceberg. Like the DJI transmission just came out. I know you ordered. Did you order one?
I got 2.
Yeah, they're.
But that's the thing. Like, it's like all the tests. I waited until the test stuff came out.
Yeah.
And there's a guy, and again, I watch Make Art Now.
Okay.
He's kind of a spaz. He's a guy out of LA. He just recently moved to Ohio. But anyways, super cool guy. And he's very real the way he does his tech reviews.
Yeah.
And so like, yeah, him and his wife were just like testing it. And like he had the high range antennas on there, and he was getting like 10,000 feet.
Yeah, it's insane.
That's crazy.
It's insane.
It's not the 20,000 feet they preach, but like the fact that he even does 10,000, there's no Teradek that comes close to that.
No, I mean my big thing, because I got mine and I did a test and I was like, how many walls can I go through? Because that's the big thing. Like I've been on set a million times where you're shooting a scene up here, whether it's reality doc or commercial or narrative, and you just don't want people around. Like if it's a narrative thing, like there's emotion in it, and you don't want your actress that needs to be in like this deep dark moment looking up and there's a bunch of like people just staring like intently at you. Like you want it to be very intimate and very low profile. So like, all right, everyone goes to the basement during this scene. Video Village is down there. If you're not working, you're down or outside. Take your pick. Well, the Teradek can't go through the basement sometimes.
No.
And that's like even the high-end Teradeks suck and can't do those. So I was like, all right, this is going to be my marker if I return
I know multiple people that got that 4K Teradek, the high-end 3,000 foot when they sold it. They returned it because they're like, this doesn't work.
It works half the time.
Yes.
And that's the problem with Teradek. But like, so I was, if this doesn't work because I watch all the same videos too, and you can see the tests, and like you never know if they're real or not.
Yes.
And so I was like, this is going to be my test for me. How far can I go with this? You know, how many walls can I get through before it stops? And so I set up my camera here in the living room, and I just walked around with the receiver. I went up to every corner of this house, 0 breakup the entire time. It's got a 1 frame latency. Big whoop. That's not a problem. And so then I got in my car, and I drove. And I was just like, let's see how far I can go. I wanted to go to the Hy-Vee that's up the road, which is 0.8 miles away, up a hill or down a hill, like whatever. There's a lot of interference. I did not get anywhere near that.
Yeah.
But when I went to the neighborhoods to the left at the same line of sight, I went through 13 houses. 13 houses away, I can set a client or a director or whatever. Maybe not a director because that didn't make sense. But
you're talking about the company, though, that literally is still the 800-pound gorilla in the drone game. Yeah. And they're constantly improving it. Yeah. The Mavic 3 transmission system, the Oculus 3 or whatever that they got, it's disgusting how far it goes. Yeah, well, like they're talking like 5 miles.
Yeah, and that's all that this transmission is.
It's the same thing.
They just took it from a drone and they put it on a camera. I'm surprised they didn't do it earlier, to be honest with you.
So when the thing is that transmitter came out when the Ronin 4D came out.
Okay.
Now, granted,
which was like 2 years ago?
About 2 years ago. Okay. And Corridor Digital did a video about the Ronin 4D because they loved it. The 4D is an interesting camera. I think it has its place. I think it's a very versatile camera for people that don't do a lot of what we do. I think someone that just wants a run and gun, they don't want to get a gimbal out, that it's all in one camera. Yeah. But you're limited on lenses. You're limited on a lot of things with it, which is fine. But again, it's a very niche camera.
Is it waterproof?
I think it's water resistant.
Because the only 2 reasons that I would think that camera would be worth a buy is if you're doing skate videos or like water sport videos.
Yes.
Like action stuff, but not necessarily in a professional
The Make Art Now guy actually used it on a car rig as well, and it actually it worked really well for that because it makes sense because it's utilizing the Z-axis.
Yeah, no, I mean
so it makes
the
sense.
chicken camera did what the chicken camera was supposed to do.
Yeah, so he had it mounted with the Tilt-A-Float or the Tilt-A-Hydra kit.
Yeah,
it's incredible how smooth it is because it's using 2 dampeners. Is what it's doing. So it does have its place. But I wouldn't use it because I'm so limited on lenses. You're so limited.
Yeah, and you have to match the look to that. And I don't know how you...
Yeah.
I haven't used the camera, so I don't know. But I don't know how well that translates to color grading to match a different camera.
That too. So, like, again, that's a whole... Like, DJI, the D-Log thing, it works for drones because you're so far away. But sometimes when you start getting it into detail stuff, like, it's not going to match an Ari or a Sony or any of that. But the Corridor Digital guys, they did a video about how much they love the 4D. And they were talking about the video transmission system, and because you can hook the Ronin 4D's handles up to it, and then like pull focus and stuff, and it's got like a whole LiDAR thing, and you can like see where you're in focus.
Yeah, that was pretty cool too.
That is really cool. Like that technology, the whole LiDAR thing, it's still not quite there with DJI, but if they can get that three-dimensional top-down view for focus pulling for like yours. that's gonna be huge.
Yeah,
It's gonna change everything.
Because a Cine Tape or like Focus Bug or like the big ones, and those, I mean, you're looking at like 20 grand.
Oh yeah, Roger
Like, when
Brainerd's
it's all
kit
said
is
and
dope.
done,
I love seeing all of his stuff out there, but I'm like, half the time if I'm doing any work with him and Durr, I'm like, oh god, we got like 18 things we got to throw on this
Right.
Ronin. But that when they did the range test for the video transmission system, and they were going through, like, they're in LA and they're going 4, 5, 6 buildings down through concrete. I'm like,
Yeah.
oh my
You're
god,
like, sold.
this is gonna change everything.
Yeah.
This is going to change everything. Teradek and Vaxis are going to sweat. There's no way.
I think Vaxis sucks.
Oh, really?
I know people love Vaxis. I fucking hate them.
I prefer Vaxis to Teradek.
I would,
but
they both equally suck, to be honest with you. Like, I've had both of them not screw me over, because like, it's fine at the end of the day.
Yeah.
But like, if I'm spending the amount of money that I'm spending on this stuff, it should work.
yes.
I'm sorry, but like, it just should. Like, if you are advertising a product to do, even like the cheapest 4K Teradek is like 750 feet, I think.
Yes.
And I can only get 300 feet. Like, come on. Like, what are we doing? Like, they're not cheap. It's
But
like,
I mean, it's true though. Like, whatever they preach, it's usually half that range or a little bit less. So it's like these preach 20,000, but they're only doing like they only do about 10.
I mean, it's the same thing when people promote cameras. Like, they give you the specs of like what is, but like, they're testing. It's in the studio environment. There's nothing
Perfect
it's in the
conditions.
perfect scenario. This is what you're getting, which is great, because a lot of people shoot in perfect scenarios. I'm not one of those people that very rarely shoots in perfect scenarios.
That's why
so
we
like,
get along. We don't shoot in perfect scenarios.
no, and I don't like those shoots. Like, I really don't. Like, I just don't like it. I like the unknown. I like the things that could go wrong, and like, how do we fix? Like, it appeals to me.
Well,
but, like,
you got to be a problem solver to do what we do.
Yeah.
Like, hands down. Like, I mean, I think that's why you and I have gotten so close over the years, because it's like sometimes like you're like, shit, Wayne, why is this not working? Tell me why this is not working, and I can usually walk you through it. Or if it's something, I mean, you've told me flat out on some shoots, you're like, yeah, I need you here just in case something does go wrong.
Well, and like, I mean, you kind of mentioned it earlier, but like, you're multiple things. So like, we haven't even touched on like what you do. So like, we can touch on, people can figure that out, but like, you do everything. Like, there are people, I'm just a DP. I'm just an audio op. I'm just a gripper. I'm just a gaffer. I'm just a producer, whatever. I don't know what you are, because you're everything, you know, like you fly the drones, you do the DP, you cam op, you do audio, you grip, you gaff, you have the van, you have a fuck ton of gear. Like, there's nothing that you don't do. So like, when I'm, you know, whether I have control of the crew or if I'm like paying for it or working the budget, my first thing is, okay, how many things can Wayne cover? And then we figure it out. So like, you know, you're invaluable. You're priceless on. I'm trying to think of what the right word. But you're priceless on set, because there's so many things that you can cover. I mean, how many times have you been running audio for me, and then you like grab the camera and I have to yell at you? I'm like, no, Wayne, I need you to do audio. You don't have to do both. It's okay.
Yeah, I got made fun of on the Gutted season 2 thing, because I had heard something that everybody was on a bathroom break.
Okay.
And I was like, the crew was. Because we were recording live for like 6-7 days.
Yeah.
Like, so yeah, it's a lie. It's reality, right? And like, I heard something. And so I literally went and grabbed one of their cameras and was like shooting something with it while I'm listening to running audio. I just put the boom on my magnetic holster. And I was just like shooting this shot, because they were talking about something interesting that was kind of, you know, it's juicy stuff.
Yeah.
And it was funny. And Jacob Shimmerhorn took a picture of me, and he's like, and he's like, save some ladies for the rest of us. It's just because it's like, it does look ridiculous that I'm wearing an audio bag on my chest with a boom pole, and I'm holding a camera, like pulling focus with it.
But that's you.
But that's what I do. I mean, and a lot of it comes back to, because I did news, and we were doing everything in the field. Yeah. Everything. So, I mean, I was my own drone op. I was my audio guy. I was the DP. I was the gaffer. I was the live truck operator. I was making sure that they don't have hair. You know, I was half the time I'm a makeup guy, because I'm making sure that they don't have hair at flyaways or something. So when I went to freelance, like, I didn't like just doing one thing. Like, and I don't like, I enjoy, and again, this town, which again, like you, I'm going to tick a lot of people off. Everybody that has a camera thinks they're a DP here. Yeah. And I knew when I stepped into it, it's like, I mean, I have over 20 years of a camera in my hand. And I'm a younger guy too, which that not a whole lot of people can say that. Yeah. But at the same time, I don't really like, oh, I'm just a DP, because I like working with people like you. And so it was more valuable to me to be able to work with people like you, Durr, Commons, all of them, in another capacity that you guys would find me valuable in, then I could learn and I could still work with you guys.
Yeah.
So again, like doing the drone stuff, or audio was completely by accident.
Audio was because of me. Everything was because of me. Like I somehow pushed you in a direction. Like,
no, audio. Well, I got further in audio because of you, but the start of audio was because I got screwed over by so many DJs at weddings when I was shooting weddings back in the day. And they would like not pot up my mic, or they would like overmodulate, and then like it would screw up my yeah. And then I almost had 2 weddings that were completely ruined because the DJ just like the speeches were just awful.
Yeah.
And the couples fortunately were super. They didn't like ask for their money back or scream at me or anything, but I was able to cover it up too with some fancy editing. That's why I got good at editing too. And then it was like I had like I'm just gonna build my own bag. I was like screw it. I'm done dealing with these people, and so. Like I just got a little Tascam 70D, a couple of Rode wireless lavs, and then I just clip them onto people for the speeches and stuff.
Yeah.
And then you were like, "Hey, we got a budget. We don't have a budget. It's a little short film. Audio is very important. Can you please come out and just run audio with your little bag?"
Was that?
That was Morbus Opus.
Oh God.
That was the first technically one that I brought out, and that's the first time I did.
That was so long ago because you weren't just audio on that. That was me, you, and Brittany.
I still got a poster. Like that's in my office.
Right
Yeah.
It's in my office too.
Yeah. And so that's the first one I ran, and I didn't have a boom yet. I just had the lavs. So I just because I didn't have anything like that yet. So I just ran. You're like, I just need good audio. I'm like, okay. Yeah. I didn't get paid for it, so I was just there.
Got paid for it.
Yeah, so
the film was actually like low-key good.
Yeah, it was because we shot in that cool church that was like right next to my house at the time too.
I look back at that. Because Ben messaged me a couple weeks ago. Yeah. He was watching the podcast and just was like, I was like, oh, thanks, dude. And more was just like, I went back and I found the YouTube link and stuff like that. And I looked at the lighting and I'm like, oh my God. I didn't know like what a silk was apparently back then. Like everything is just like the air kit, like harsh light. And I'm just sitting here like, oh, I've come so far in 6 years.
It's amazing how much you change in just a year. Like even when I start cutting my reels and stuff. I got ripped apart
for saying that once. I said that, so I did a music video, I don't know how many years now, and I at the beginning of the year, and then I did another music video at the end of the year, and I put in one of those Facebook groups, and I was just like, wow, like, look at how far I came, like, this is back when I thought social media was, like, positive. I was like, look how far I've come, and they're like, you can't grow in a year, it takes longer than that, and like, this was, like, multiple comments were like that, and I'm like, dude, there's a very clear difference between these two videos. Like, what are we talking about? Like, get out of here. And it was just insane to me that someone thought that you couldn't grow in a year.
No, it's insane how much I like stuff that I thought I was proud of like a year or two ago. Like I'm like, ooh,
yeah,
I don't know if I want to put that in my reel.
Yeah,
like that's not even close to what I can do now.
No.
And again, it's not super fair because again, our kit grows a lot in a year.
Yeah.
And that was like the one thing I thought was crazy getting out of news. Is like I left the news station with a Sony A7S Mark I, a 24-70 Zeiss F4, and a Phantom 4 drone.
Yeah.
And a tripod. Like that one right
Phantoms.
there.
Oh my gosh.
And so like that's all I started with. And I was just amazed when I went freelance. My kit doubled inside of the year.
Well, yeah.
And it's doubled every time since. Like
it's more than doubled every year. You have a ton of stuff.
I worked so hard to get those 3 things when I worked at the news station.
Yeah.
Just those 3 things. It's just amazing. Just like it's freelance life is like really freeing and it's really empowering, but at the same time it's like there's always like, oh, is there going to be work?
Yeah.
I mean, it's just, but it's part of the territory. But like seeing exactly what goes in and what comes out, and when you know exactly where everything goes, it's if you're ambitious and you're really wanting to work your ass off, like this is a great field.
Oh yeah.
But if you just want to like sit back and like, you just want to collect a paycheck and you don't want to like work on weekends, this is not for you.
It's not for the weak-hearted.
No, it's not.
It's not anywhere close to it. And like all this stuff about gear, like you don't have to have gear. Like that's just the route that you and I decided to take.
Yeah.
I think
just because we hate spending money on renting it.
We hate spending money on renting stuff, but I also think that like we also understand the business side of that. I know I've talked about this on other episodes of the podcast too. That like there's a lot of people that just like they're happy just making the day rate and renting gear every single time. I'm not. Like I could just collect my DP rate and be fine financially. Like totally fine. Like have a great life. Like for Brittany, us, the dog, like all of us, we could have a great life. But like that's not enough for me. Like I want to create something. I want to be be bigger than what it appears. You know, like I want stuff to happen, and that's, you know, kind of, you know, hopefully what happens here in the near future. That like, I don't even know what I'm trying to say at this point, to be honest with you. I've confused myself enough, but like I don't want to be content with just getting a day rate. I want to be able to amass money and then use that money in some sort of positive way for the film community, but also for the world, you know, like, and having gear, like, you can help other people do that. Like, there's people that hit me up all the time that are timid because of how other people, you know, treat them. They're like, I have this shoot. I would really love to be able to use some gear, but I don't have any money for it. Like, please don't yell at me. And it's like, no, dude, like, I'm not using it. Like,
if I'm
what
not
can you afford? And if you say 0, like, that's cool too. And people don't believe me all the time. Like, I've sent $250,000 worth of gear for nothing.
Yeah.
To people that I like semi know.
Yeah.
And it's like, that's fine. Like, that's part of the reason I have this, is that I'm going to charge the fuck out of the big corporations that have more money than they need to spend. But like, when it comes to you and you're just trying to figure stuff out, like, I would love for you to be able to use this gear, because yes, it is only a tool, but it helps when you have the best tools.
It's true. Yeah.
You know, like,
and again, that's Charles Whitmill and Cooper Harrington, I believe that's his last name. They were doing their thesis film too, and it's like, they're like, is there any chance, like, we don't have a budget, we got a little bit, but we don't have much, can we borrow like basically half my stock?
Yeah.
And I'm like, yeah, if I'm not using it, dude,
as long as I'm not using it, like, I'm not going to turn down a job so that you can use it on your
but I was like,
film. But
you treat it right, you get it all back to me in one piece, and if I'm not using it, it's all yours. Because I'm not gonna. And as somebody has approached me about that too, like, it was actually funny. It was Aaron that said that, and he goes, because something came back, and something was busted, and I had to fix it or whatever. And he's like, why do you take a risk on these people that you're not even making your rate on it? Like, why would you take a risk on that? Like, it just doesn't make any sense. I'm like, because everybody starts somewhere. Yeah. And it's funny because he ended in, he's like, yeah, I guess. He goes, you just got, you know, he says, you're just way more, he told me, like, I guess I'm more charitable than he would be. Or I'm more risky than he would be. Yeah. And he got in his car and went home, and he called me, and he goes, I'm a terrible person. He goes, I was one of those, wasn't I? I was like, yes, you were, Aaron. He goes, God, I'm a dick. And I'm like, it's okay. Like, I wouldn't say I had it. It was when I went freelance, like, I felt like I was the best version of myself. Yeah. I was working with people that I enjoyed working with, that I liked, that I wanted to invest my time, my energy, and my tools in. And sometimes, like, you don't have, and there was literally a Facebook post that just came up like a month ago, and it was me like 10 years ago being like, man, I wish I had the money to afford this gear, because it would make this so much better. I don't want other people to be in that situation. No. And that's like, but you know, it's funny because I look back on that and I'm like, oh, Wayne, if you only knew 10 years later, the van and the shit that you've got, like, it's just amazing how much, you know, just 10 years, like, so much has changed. No, I mean, I've was freelance. This is my 7th year going into freelance now. But like, when I started, I didn't have people to help me. I had a couple people that I thought were going to help me, and then like ended up, you know, blowing up in my face. And I'm not going to say that on this, but like, you know what I'm talking about. Yes, I know. To no fault of myself, you know, like, it was just like, it's just this ego trip that people get into. And so I know that some people, and we'll both laugh saying this, and I'll probably hear some audible stuff from Brittany over there. People say I'm hard to work with. People don't necessarily like working with me. You know? Oh my God. And the reasoning behind it, and then you can go on after that, but the reasoning behind it is because I don't like people that treat people the way that I was treated when I joined the industry. And I'm not some vigilante, like, I'm not some hero, I'm not asking for praise, but like, when I see something that is wrong, I'm going to say something about it, because I wish someone would have said something to me, because the people that I had problems with, other people also had problems with them, and they didn't tell me. Yeah. And so like, I don't want to ever be in a situation, regardless of how long someone's been in the industry, that I see someone getting screwed over, belittled, whatever, and then I had the opportunity and I have the knowledge to be like, no, like, stop. Yes. Don't do that. Don't do whatever. I don't want to be the person that like could have done something but then didn't, and then someone had to be like me, because I mean, I've almost quit the industry twice. Once after the stuff went down initially with these couple of people, and then once again like 2 years ago for a different reason. But like, I don't want someone to give times. You were what? I think I was there both times on both the projects.
Well, the first one wasn't necessarily a project. That was just a situation in general with people.
Okay, maybe
but
not
like, well, now maybe it was 3 times. I don't know. You were there on the second one, but like, I just would hate. I would have a guilty conscience if someone quit the industry and I had something
to do with it.
That I had something to do with it, or I didn't do something and they quit. Like, so I would rather people not like me and spread rumors about me and like think that I'm difficult and stuff like this, if that means that on the other side of that there are people that are still in this industry and still working and still following their dream because I said something. And if I'm the bad guy for that, cool. Like, I'm not trying to pat myself on the back. Like, I really don't care. Like, people's opinions means literally nothing to me. So it's just I would rather people be supportive of each other and give gear, give advice, give whatever. Talk about rates, that's what my big blow up at the beginning is because I was at a league that someone that was mentoring me, we hit the same threshold. We had the same gear. We were doing the same jobs. And I reached out in a collaborative effort of like, hey, let's both get paid the same amount of money. What are you charging? And that started a domino effect that became competition instead of community. And I will never, ever, 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 ever compete with anybody in this industry.
Yes.
You just listed off a bunch of DPs in Kansas City. I wish them all nothing but success. I really don't care if they work harder than me.
We have very talented people here in Kansas City.
Yeah, we have a ton of talented people.
Honestly, that's why I champion. It's like I want more stuff to be here.
Yeah.
Because like we have so much local talent. It really sucks we can't get incentives to get stuff here.
So, I mean, incentives part of it. I mean, I can go on a tangent about incentives if you want to.
You had a whole podcast
it's
about
more,
that
well,
too.
I got even more stuff now, but like it's more of a mentality thing and it's more of a drive thing. So that's part of what this team up with the IFC is that in order for people to take Kansas City seriously, in order for people to take Kansas City seriously, Kansas City needs to take itself seriously. We need to be pushing out a fuck ton of content and give people no choice but to go, Kansas City's a narrative town or whatever type of work people want to do. We need to make stuff. Like I know it's really easy to sit here and get in a grind and get day rates and money and you know all the cash flow and stuff like that. And then like, no, I do nothing but commercials because I want to get paid. But you can't also be upset that we're not getting narrative work because of that. Like you need to be able to go, okay, I'm going to take some of this money that I stacked and I'm going to fund my own future. Or because I have all this money, I'm going to take 6 days off so I can make this TV pilot with my friends. Like you have to be able to do stuff like that and you have to constantly create. And that's what the IFC and I are talking about are like, what are ways that we can collaboratively in Kansas City get stuff to go on?
I won't say their name, but DP that I've been kind of working with a little bit this year more closely. He and I were just going on about that. And he was just saying, he's like, dude, we got to do, I have to do something creative in a year. Cause otherwise just like the commercial grind, it's a grind. Like you just like, and even my wife says this too. She goes, because I've been kind of in a little bit of, since Siege, we've been having a lot of issues with post-production stuff and people. So we were just, and it's just, she goes, you need to do something creative again. Yeah. She goes, you creative is like total night and day difference. Yeah. Goes, and again, I put my own money in Siege. Like, but there's like 3 or 4 of us that like produced, like got the money together and of our own cash to put into it. Because if we're not like promoting what we're doing, the narrative stuff, like you said, like, then what are we doing? Right. Like, yeah, we have to, it's kind of one of those things, you got to practice what you preach, right? So if this is what you want to see here, then you need to put it out and put your own money where that is, so that way you can further that.
Yeah, and it's not just money. Like time is also money in this instance. So like,
it is.
You know, and I want to be better about that too, because I've now produced 2 projects that I've put money in, other people's money as well as my own money, and I did not shoot them in Kansas City. Yeah. So it is hypocritical for me to sit here and bash someone for taking a production elsewhere and stuff like that. But 2023, you're going to see the opposite of that. We have some stuff in the works, so there's going to be stuff that is funded, produced, whatever, by us that is going to be here in Kansas City because we are trying to make Kansas City a narrative market.
Coming from me too, like I've literally tried. Data dollies are so cumbersome, but the fact that you usually need more than one person to do it. At least 2. Yeah, it's kind of a pain. So I like Dana's. They're great. Industry standard, but it's a pain. And I've tried literally every slider on the market to try and like avoid getting a Dana. And I end up getting a Dana and selling them. Edelkrone, think it's a great design. But if you got anything more than DSLR on there, without a cage, mind you, it just doesn't work. I had an FX6 on there, heavy, which they preach that an Ursa Mini will go on it. Dude, by the time you get halfway out on the wing, you're seeing slant in the shot. I'm like,
DJI
this doesn't
also
work.
advertised that you could put a mini on their little single hand gimbal. You can put it on there. You're not gonna be able to power it.
You ain't gonna be able to power it. No way.
You're gonna have a baby lens. Like it's just marketing tactics.
It's all
and stuff
marketing
like that.
tactics.
That's all that it is.
But no, Dana Dolly, hands down. Like, and I will say the one big improvement for Dana Dolly, which again, eventually, hopefully, you'll probably invest in one too. Those active heads from Sackler.
Oh yeah,
getting that to go from your tripod to the Dana Dolly. Now, granted, it takes a second to like get that pin adjusted correctly to be tight, because there are some. Kevin Swarzenberger was getting frustrated with his the other day when we were on a shoot because it wasn't latching and he had a little too tight, so I had to loosen it a little bit and then it would snap in.
Yeah.
But once you get that happy balance in there, going from the tripod to the Dana Dolly like that.
Yeah.
Amazing game change. And again, for productions that there's no budget, speed.
Yeah. Well, I just bought a second tripod head. So like I just have a tripod head that is only for the Dana, and then I've just got my dovetail plates.
That's what Travis did too.
Because I don't know how much like the weight capacity is on those actives, but like my camera rigs are usually
the
like
12 is like the 12. Mine's an active 10, and it does like 22 pounds, but the active 12 is like, I want to say 35.
Okay, I mean the 12 could.
The
work.
14 does like 50 almost.
Oh, okay. Well then, yeah. So I had the extra heads. I mean, I struck gold with the tripods that I have. There's no discount on the planet that you could get that is comparable to how I got my tripods.
No,
100% legally. Just saying.
Just because Brittany's really good at looking.
Yeah, I mean, so I got my Miller. We need to wrap this up here in a couple minutes, so we'll talk about this now. We'll talk about one more thing. How much time do we have? Sweet. I got my Miller Aero. Is it a 50 or 55? One of the two, regardless.
It's a nice. Millers are great.
It's an $8,500 tripod that I bought for $1,500, and I got 3 of them, and I sold 2 of them.
Yep.
eBay. People didn't realize what they had. I saw some Miller cases. I was like, that's a tripod. I can see the silver, so I know something's in there. Even if they were like cheaper end Millers, still make your money back. And there's a bunch of other stuff that was in the unit, mislabeled on eBay. I had no idea what they had. It was 3 Aero 50s. Boom, profit. Now I have a great tripod for whatever. And then I
rocked that for forever.
Yeah, and then it broke. But then I fixed it. And then the Sackler DV12, again, $9,000 tripod. Brittany was down in Versailles, Missouri, and she goes there all the time. There's like the swap meet flea market thing that's down there. And there was this guy that had a bunch of like knockoff, like, you know, like get on Amazon video equipment type stuff. And he was like, yeah, I got some other stuff in Kansas City, like if you want to see it, because Brittany went and poked around, and she sends me a picture of a red Sackler bag. And I'm like, that's Sackler. Like, ask him how much he wants. And he goes, $100. We have no idea if there's even anything in the bag, but the bag itself is worth more than $100.
It's true.
And so we were like, all right, cool. So we drive down, you know, we meet him somewhere downtown Kansas City or whatever. And he was like, oh yeah, I brought some other stuff for you, like just in case you wanted it. It was a bunch of whatever, but like, so we took it. Come to the Sackler bag. I grab it. I immediately open it in front of this guy, and you see inside a brand new Sackler DV12, and I had to not smile and get excited because I did not want this guy to be he'd be like, no, that's not $100 anymore. Like that's, you know, I didn't want him. So I had to play it cool. Like, yeah, okay, we'll find something to do with this. Put it in the car. And I was like, Brittany, we just got another $10,000 tripod for $100.
Yes.
$100. Now, whether that guy stole it or not, I'm not sure. The pin on the side of it is broken. So it very well could have been a like scratch and dent, fell off a truck type deal, and then some wholesaler bought it, and then another wholesaler like made its way down the line. I don't think he stole it. Again, it was if he stole it from Sackler directly, and Sackler's not in Kansas City, so I don't think that's the case. But yeah, I mean, I got like $30,000 worth of tripods for $1,600.
Jesus.
Like no one will ever top that.
No,
ever.
No,
and I get deals on gear all the time.
There's no deal. There's no sale that you'll ever have that's like close.
There's not a single person. I mean, honestly, I feel like I should be sponsored by Miller and Sackler for just
Sackler
being able
makes
to pull
good
that
stuff.
off.
It's funny, like when I was in Tulsa, that's what we had as Sackler tripods.
No, Sackler's fantastic.
I didn't like them then, but then once I started using their newer stuff and not their old stuff, I'm like, oh, you guys, okay, It's because the station's cheap and they buy like the cheap. They just have
their
ancient
their new
tripods.
stuff is great. The Flowlegs are fantastic.
Flowtech, I don't know how you do it without it by yourself. Like the Flowtech sticks are amazing.
Yeah, no, they're fantastic. I don't really like O'Connor that much. I mean, again, that's another one of those. It's a name recognition thing. Like
it is.
For 3 times the price, you can get a tripod that does the same thing, but just because it has O'Connor on it, everybody wants it. And I'm like, no, I'll buy this $10,000 tripod and spend 20 grand on lenses or whatever it is.
I get some of the O'Connor heads because they need weight capacity due to because you're like running a really heavy teleprompter plus an ARRI on there plus whatever lenses. I get that, and it's
there's some
unofficial.
very specific reasons, mainly when you need a Mitchell mount.
Correct.
But other than that, it's like, why would you why? No. It doesn't make sense. No. All right, well, we're coming up to our time. I do want to talk about one more thing, just real quick. 2023. What are your gear goals? I want to talk about your personal goals, but from a gear perspective, at December of 2023. What are you hoping is in your kit and in your arsenal?
I would probably like to add another FX6, if I'd be perfectly honest.
If they ever come back in stock.
I know. That's another key thing. I got 2 FX3s and the FX6, and they're a magical combo. But for actual gear, I mean, this year I got a lot of stuff. The transmitter sets are amazing. Maybe a small HD larger client monitor / focus pulling monitor, like a 13-inch that I could use for either or.
Those 4K monitors are really nice.
I don't know if I need 4K. I'd settle for a 1080,
1303, I think is what it
is. Yeah. I mean, they're on sale quite a bit here and there on B&H and whatnot. So it's one of those, like, probably looking at least a small HD monitor. My wife and I are expecting our first child in April, so we're kind of waiting till gear purchases are kind of a little bit on a hold until
not a priority necessarily.
Yeah, so we gotta figure out how to get that stuff done first, and then once baby's born and we settle into what our bills and what we got to pay the hospital and everything, we'll probably be looking at some more gear stuff, but monitor, maybe because. Tilta's coming out with that new the Nano focus puller. I really like the first one, and so I kind of wanted to get the second one just because it's actually like got a pistol grip and stuff on it, and it actually looks like it's more comfortable in your hand. The other one I had to build like a unit to where it mounted onto like a battery bank, so that way you had something to hold on to, because otherwise you're accidentally pushing the buttons on it when you're holding it. It was just terrible. So probably maybe the new focus unit, a monitor, maybe an FX6. I really would like to get some like cinema zooms, some Cata zooms, maybe some. I would like to get like the E-mount like 51.2 as well, maybe some glass. So, but
glass is always a good purchase.
I know, the DZOs that I bought, I love those to death. Like they work all the time, which it's funny. Like they get rented out more than anything. Like and people that don't have a budget or they're like, hey, is your DZOs available? I'm like, yeah, sure. If I'm not using them, then you're good.
Right.
So there's a General Mills commercial that actually rented them for putting them on their Venice. I was like, okay.
Interesting combo.
Yeah, like
okay.
I was like, super interesting combo. Yeah, Aaron Monson was the one that facilitated the deal. He's like, yeah, it's kind of weird. They didn't want anything bigger. The guy wanted the micro primes. I'm like, okay. He's like, I got a good rate for it. So I was like, sweet.
That's a very interesting choice.
The shots,
do your thing, man.
Hey, man, they're doing dailies with it too. I'm like, oh, that looks really good. He goes, yeah, I'm really liking the way these micro primes look with the sensor.
Nice.
I'm like, oh, cool.
Yeah, the Venice is a great camera. I mean, these are nice lenses too. It's just one of those that like.
It's weird.
If you have a Venice, you have a budget, obviously.
Let's be real honest though. Like it was weird when you got your LF and you were rocking those little Nikon primes that you had on it.
Well, yeah, it was weird, but like it worked and it was dope.
That's what I'm saying.
It's a cost effective thing. Like I was using the Nikon AISs. I incentivized them. I did the whole thing. Mm-hmm. It looked funny, but the image on it was fantastic.
Yeah, it looked great.
And I was saving up money to buy the signature primes.
Yes.
That was the whole point of it, is that I knew that I could rent lenses if I needed a different type of lens. But for stuff that I was doing, that was me. I liked the vintage
feel,
look and the feel.
Which I've been on plenty of those projects with you.
Yeah, and so like they worked, and then I got the signature primes, and I haven't touched the Nikon since because they're fucking fantastic.
Yep.
Okay, so last thing I want to do, and I want to say this last because this is what people are gonna get in the comment section and freak out about. Give me a hierarchy of cameras. Give me the bottom of the food barrel, never will touch it. Middle, like, whatever. And then, like, the top two, like, these are the ones that I want to use. So not just stuff you own. I'm talking in general for the history of forever. What's your hierarchy of cameras?
Oh my God.
Not just brands. I'm talking specific cameras.
Specific cameras?
Yeah.
Okay. So, I'm going to have some people hate me on this.
That's why we're doing this.
Yeah.
How much time we have? I just want to double check that we don't. 12 minutes? Sick.
Probably bottom of the barrel camera that you won't see me rocking is a Blackmagic Pocket.
Fuck that.
I
There's nothing wrong with people that shoot on that, but
There's nothing wrong with
I'm not
them.
touching it.
But I did a film on some of the original Blackmagic cinema cameras, and it's just like that codec is so fat. It is just annoying storing it. So and it's just so discombobulated, and it's like, oh, if you don't use Resolve, you're screwed. Yeah. Okay, so I would say Blackmagic Pocket.
One more thing on the Blackmagic. Out of principle, I will not use a camera that I have to have an external card attached to use it.
That is
out of
weird.
Principle alone. It could be the greatest camera in the world, but you're telling me that like I could sneeze and knock a cable and lose everything? No, not a chance.
They
not
actually
a chance I'm touching it.
Somebody built an a CFast A to an external SSD for the Sonys, and I'm like, fuck no. No. Like, that's not why you buy that.
I hated that the original Venice, to shoot RAW, you had to have an external recorder.
We actually had a problem with that. I want to Sam Jones. We were doing a little project for him for a friend of his, and he has an F55, and he had the RAW recorder on it. We were shooting, and I think it was probably like 14 degrees outside. We were rolling on stuff, and just kind of out of necessity, he's like, because he's been acting weird, and we had already rolled like a handful of shots in the morning. He went in to check it. All the footage was white.
Yeah,
it borked it. Like there was nothing to recover.
Yeah, you're relying on a single cable.
Yeah, I'm like,
and it makes no sense.
Oh no! Like so, we had to reshoot a handful of just mission critical shots that day because it was only like a 2 or 3 day shoot.
Yeah,
and so like that was the first day, and we were having all these issues with the and it was because it was a cold outside. I'm like, that's a terrible flaw on the Sony side. Oh my god!
Yeah, and they did it on the Venice. It's stupid. It makes no sense.
Yeah, I'm a Sony guy, and I'm like, whoa, that's bad, guys.
Bad idea. All right, so Blackmagic bottom. What else we got? What's the next step up?
The next step up would probably be the Ursa. It's a good camera. I think
There's
it's
a
good.
theme Blackmagic at the bottom.
I know, Blackmagic at the bottom. I know I'm gonna get a lot of flack. It looks good. I've shot plenty with like Scott Jollies and whatnot. It does look nice. It's got a nice ENG format for like news feel, but it's just big and bulky, and I don't think you get a whole lot out of it. It's good for if you're on a budget. It's great for that. And then probably coming up, for like a mid-tier camera, I mean, I guess any of the Reds. Like, I mean, I'm not a huge Red guy. I mean, you started with Red.
Yeah, the Scarlet W.
But then I mean, let's be honest. The guy that runs Red kind of ran it into the ground, and then the whole controversy with the mini mags and stuff came out. I'm like, bruh. Like
my list, bottom of the barrel is everything Red. Honestly, it'd be below the ground. That's how much I hate Red. And I hope that Red sees this and they laugh and they're like, hey, we don't want to use our shit anyway.
Well, that's the thing. Like,
I hate them.
I mean, at the end of the day, I think I will say the Komodo. I really like shooting on that.
Okay, I lied. The Komodo's not bad.
Yeah, the global shutter's nice. I think that it's like, it's weird that they didn't include it on the Raptor.
Yeah.
The global shutter alone, like, my brother shot a little short film for a project, and hopefully we get to show people eventually here. But the global shutter, it just looks so much different than everything we've been shooting on because we're shooting on a shutter. Yeah. And so it's so weird, but it looks great. Like the motion looks just so different.
I like the Komodo for a crash cam. It's the size of it is perfect. It hurts me that it's Red. It really does. But the form factor of it is so convenient.
And the fact that they went from the mini mags because all that was like after all the controversy stuff with the mini mags, they went to just CFast cards or
I think
whatever
the
it is.
I could be wrong.
But they're not just all proprietary shit anymore. I'm like, okay, Red is returning to form. Like, I can forgive that. I haven't worked with the Raptor personally. I know Commons loves his. So I can't say whether it's great or not. I did work we were on a Hy-V shoot, I think, and they had 2 Raptors on that too. It seems like a nice camera, but I don't know any I was doing DIT on that shoot.
On stuff like that.
Yeah.
I think Red is an amazing marketing company. I don't think they're a camera company. Yeah. I think that everyone that likes Red has bought into the marketing campaign and what they do with like Jason Momoa and Michael Bay, and we're going to make you these fancy cameras that like, oh cool, you painted your camera. We know people have spray painted cameras. Does that make them better DPs because of it? No. Like Jason Momoa is a gold or bronze, whatever it is, camera.
I just love that you mentioned the spray painted camera because we
Yeah,
both know who we're talking about.
But
it's just like you're not going to be able to sell that. Oh God, you sold it. Oh shit.
Right. Like I mean, Red's campaign. They legitimately put out that like shoot 8K so you don't have to do multiple shots, and I'm like, you're no longer a camera company.
Well, Blackmagic did the same thing with the 12K.
Yeah,
I'm like, bruh.
Yeah, no, we could go on this rant forever, and we're about to run out of media ourselves.
I know.
So
VFX
camera.
I will say VFX guys don't like 8K or 12K anyways. So
no, the 4.5 that the Mini LF has is perfect.
Correct.
It's fucking this. So the mid tier, it gets loose in the mid tier. We'll put Red in the mid tier. The high tier is I think the two best cameras that are out currently are the Venice 2 and the Mini LF.
Correct.
I'll fight anybody on that. I think the Venice 2 beats the Mini LF by a smudge.
You are going to, and again, I don't know how much maybe we got left, but you're going to hate me for this. But like, so I have seen footage from the A35, and I know you hate it, and it does look really nice.
Oh, I'm not down that it's nice.
Yes,
my
it
qualms
does look
with,
really nice.
My qualms with the Alexa 35 are solely from a business standpoint.
I know.
From a technical camera standpoint, I fully understand.
I will
the
say
benefit of that camera.
the B mount is the biggest kick in the nuts, and I actually had just sent in my Ronin 2 because the person in town that has an A35, they need to use it, and so I literally sent my whole Ronin 2 to LA to get they basically tapped into the side motor, so it taps into the power, so I can run an A35 on that Ronin 2 inside the cage.
They don't have a cable for that?
It barely runs it. It barely runs it.
So because it's a 24 volt.
Yep. So I will say that is the biggest kick in the nuts
Yeah.
for a lot of it, I'm really impressed with, like the company that did the mod to the Ronin 2. It looks
cool.
really slick.
That's actually really cool. But like that, obviously from a technical perspective, the Alexa 35 is a great camera.
Yes.
I had people that were calling me out when I was going on my rants when they released it and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I never once said the camera's bad, but when you're looking from a financial standpoint and from a logistics standpoint, it just doesn't make sense.
Yes.
So I can't put it up there with the Venice 2 and the Mini LF. I just can't. And then right below them, and I'm talking right below them, the FX6. The FX6 per dollar, best camera that's on the market.
It's a hands down one of the best cameras. You can make it. And again, I've had people fight me on the FX9 being better.
Just give me a 2-minute warning.
I've had people fight me on the FX9 being better than the FX6. There is a very significant. You can actually, people like us will notice it. Other people won't. But like the FX3, the FX6, the FX9, you can definitely tell there's a difference between every three of those cameras. But the FX6 has something the FX9 doesn't have. The fact it can be small.
Yeah.
You can tear it down. I can put it on. I bought the Ronin 2 off Sean Joseph purely because of the fact that it was going to be a rental item. Will I use a Ronin 2? Probably not. No. Like, that's not my thing. Like, I don't run huge cameras. But you have a huge camera. Durr has a huge camera. Commons has a huge camera. And that you guys need that stuff. Me, I just bought a Tilta Advanced ring for my RS3, and I can run my FX6 on it.
Yeah.
It looks great.
All this stuff that makes the FX9 technically better than the FX6, I very rarely use.
Correct.
And I've shot with the FX9 a million times.
And the FX9 doesn't have 12,800 ISO.
No, it doesn't have that. And I mean, I can. I don't know how to do this. I don't know. I can hold the FX6 like this.
Yes.
And it weighs nothing. The FX9 once the FX9 is kitted out, it's a huge camera. It's a great camera, don't get me wrong. But the 6 will beat it for form factor alone because the FX6's max capabilities are more than enough than you need in any job. No, I don't care what genre it is.
Yes.
Commercial, it's more than enough you need.
Siege was entirely shot on the FX6. Also, Ten of Swords is also shot entirely on the FX6.
And it's a money thing. It's half price.
It looks fantastic. My director for Siege was a little ticked off that Ten of Swords, my DZOs didn't show up in time. Because I ordered the FX6 and the DZOs like November 2020. And they didn't show up. November 2020. And they didn't show up until like well into like 2021, like 4 or 5 months later. And our Siege we shot in March, so we didn't have my FX6 or the DZOs before his film. But the film we shot in September, I had all that stuff. He's like, son of a bitch, Wayne, why is all the cool stuff not on our movie? I'm like, I understand, not my fault.
I'm sorry, blame the shipping people.
Yeah, so we had to borrow. So we used for Siege, we used my 24-70 zoom and just manual focused it, and then another guy's FX6 that already had one.
Yeah. Moral of the story, because we do have to wrap this up. If anyone's still watching right now, moral of the story is if you're starting out, buy an FX6. That's the camera to have.
That's a really good camera.
It's the camera to have. If
Honest
you're
to God,
not starting out and you just want some
if you even need to go lower than that, the FX3 is a good option.
Yeah. I would go for FX6 just because of internal ND.
Yes.
I think that spending the extra money is 100% worth it. But if you can't, the FX3 is a very fine camera as well.
Yes.
But no, we could talk about gear for hours. I mean, we've talked about gear for hours.
This is why we're friends.
Many car rides we have talking about gears.
We spent a lot of time in the van talking about it.
Yeah, a lot of things we talk about in the van. But I very much appreciate you coming out and being on this. I know that we're usually behind the camera, so being in front of it's kind of weird. It was an adjustment period when I did the first couple of these. I'm like, what the fuck am I doing?
I mean, it is weird. Remember we did the eye doctor appointment, or the eye doctor clinic,
Oh,
and you're like, It's weird how good you are in front of the camera too.
And Wayne's like, I secretly want to be an actor. My entire life.
You see, I put the contacts in though when I go on
Yeah.
camera because I was like, I don't have. It's funny, I did it because I was like, well, do we need to worry about reflections? But then
No,
you're
man,
wearing
we
the
don't like
glasses.
this. We're all natural in this house. You know?
I know. Right?
But no, thank you very much for coming on. Thank you all for listening. Make sure you like, subscribe, all the other things that you got to do. Share the post. That's the big one. Make sure you guys stay tuned to the IFC pages to see what new things we're brainstorming and coming up with. But until next time, Until next time, this is, I don't even know the name of my own podcast. Well, this is staying in because I love these bloopers and stuff like this. I'm just going to say goodbye. Thank you again.
No problem, dude.
And once these cameras cut, we are going to bash Red and other companies even longer. Okay, bye. We're going to cut this now. See ya.